Hello, everyone. I have a special guitar, the first of its kind. This guitar I named Bucephalus, which is pretty pretentious. I admit that. But this is a WarHorse model, and it's a really special WarHorse. A great departure from what I've been doing. I wanted to give this a special name, so Bucephalus. Okay. That was Alexander the Great's horse, his war horse, and he was apparently quite magnificent. And I think this guitar is magnificent, so I wanted to have a magnificent and maybe pretentious name. So Bucephalus is this guitar. So this is my Warhorse model, which is my version of a dreadnought, but it has a bunch of stuff that makes it kind of not like anything I've built before. The most obvious thing is that it has a multi-scale neck. So this multi-scale is, you can see the angle of the bridge is skewed, as is the nut, and the frets are fanned. What this is basically is a 25/4 scale, a Martin Long scale here on the bass, and a 24/9 scale here on the treble. And the idea of this is that you get the advantage of two different scale lengths on one guitar. You get a big brassy bass and a sweet short scale top end. I think it really works. It's amazing that your fingers are not bothered by this. It does not affect the way I play at all. And so you get kind of a cool best of both worlds thing happening. That was the biggest mind bender for me, because it's the first multi-scale I've done. And I had to think a little bit. I had to break the old brain out for a few minutes. It changes a lot of stuff about how the guitar is constructed. And everything was different on this guitar anyway, so the scale length is different. I've got this radically deep cutaway here. This doesn't depart the fingerboard until the 18th fret. So you have access all the way up to the 21st fret, no sweat. I really like that. That is so cool. And I have my usual sound port. This has a bevel on the front and a bevel here on the waist in back to give comfort while you play it. Another new thing I did was I did double sides, or laminated sides. These are made up of 3 individual pieces. So I have Brazilian rosewood on the outside, I have a maple core, and then I have an East Indian rosewood on the inside. This does a few things. It makes this guitar really strong. I do not have to worry about these sides cracking, which you do have to be careful with lightly built guitars that you don't crack them. This is not going to happen unless you really abuse this thing. It makes the sides super rigid. They're a little bit heavier than my normal sides because they end up being thicker. An added benefit is that it makes it possible to make the sides just dead flat, which optically is really nice. But the important thing about this sonically is that it acts like a sort of massing up the sides. Energy that the top creates that might normally dissipate into the sides and get kind of lost just gets thrown out with the top. If you imagined it like a cannon, you would want like a big, heavy cannon to fire the cannonball out. If you had a light cannon, when the ball is expelled out forward, well, it would knock the cannon back like this. So, in a way, this is creating more mass for the top and the back to operate on. That's the idea. Anyway, and then finally, for the construction that is different, this has a radially braced back. The idea of the radially braced back, for me, is that it creates a monopole kind of vibration pattern on the back, and that simply means that the back member is working as one big diaphragm. You know, we talk about monopole and dipole. It's monopole is the whole thing going at once. Dipole is it breaks in half and it's working. It's just a matter of where the thing is dividing into different plates that are vibrating at different times. I want this back to be monopole, and I want it to be very lively. And it's a thinly built back, and I really feel that bass comes from a coupling of the top with the back. And this thing, man. So now, after all that blathering, I'm going to tell you that it sounds amazing. It sounds like a piano. This does not sound like my ordinary guitar. And I keep playing this, and I go, wow, this is like somebody else's guitar that I would really like. So I'm really pleased with how it turned out. Before I play it, well, let me give you a chord. Here we go. Because I know people are watching this video and saying, just shut up and play the guitar. But I'm sorry, I'm just trying to give you a little, because the guitar is unique, so I'm trying to tell you a little bit about it. So I didn't tell you what the wood is. First of all, it's Adirondack spruce on the top. Red spruce, famed the world over. A lot of pre-war Martins were made with Adirondack. Adirondack is like sort of the cat's meow of spruces. I personally believe that a lot of different spruces work really well, but red spruce does impart a certain, like, it's really springy wood. It's really light and stiff. Good examples of it are really light and stiff, and it produces a very loud, detailed, articulate instrument. This happens to be like the nicest set of Adirondack spruce I've maybe ever used. It's like Adirondack is generally not as pure looking as some of the other spruces, with wider grains and wider and more uneven grains, but this is a really nice one, and it sounds wonderful. The back and sides are made from very old Brazilian rosewood, and this is actually was carbon dated from between the late 19th century and the early 20th century, something like 1860 to 1910, when they think the age of this wood is from when it stopped being a living tree. And it's perfectly quarter sawn, and it has no sapwood or no defects. It's really stunning. And I'm a big advocate of, as I've said many times, of alternative tone woods, and I think you can make a really, really excellent guitar with just about any hardwood as the back and sides. Generally speaking, you can make a really good guitar, but there's something about Brazilian rosewood. Maybe it's the unobtainium factor. It's so gorgeous, and it's so pleasant to work with. It smells good, and then it rings, and it gives this complexity to the sound and this long decay. I mean, this may have longer sustain than any guitar I've ever built before. Let's see, I'll play a little bit more. there. I don't know if this is transferring properly through video and this little microphone, but it's like I said, it's totally different sound than my other guitars. Like it has it's like a piano. My other guitars are a little more fundamental than this. You know, usually I build more straightforward guitars, and I built them really light. This guy's, he's not heavy, but he's heavier than my other guitars. And I think the big takeaway from me is the sides. They create a sophistication in the sound. It's impossible to pick out one thing. It's this whole combination of things. Another thing about the skewed bridge here is that it changes the whole layout. This is still X-braced, but the braces are all twisted in there too, so that changes everything. Completely different animal, but I'm just really pleased with it. So Dale had me build this guitar for him, and he had all sorts of ideas which we employed. So I would never have done this if Dale hadn't had this vision for a guitar. And he talked me into a lot of things that I was hesitant to do, being sort of a conservative fellow in building. So I'm really glad it happened. Thank you, Dale, for getting me out of my shell. I love this instrument, and I hope you do too. So there it is, Bucephalus, the WarHorse. Thank you very much. I know that was a really long video. If you hung in all the way to the end here, I thank you. Take care.